Another edition of Great Millstone Mailbag Extra coming to you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bar Shem Yahushai Bar Shem Rakakwadash. All praises and glory is due. Now in this edition, I have an article here, and I will feature this article in this edition. It's from a fresh light source. The End Times. Which a sign of the end times is what? Martial law. You know, you see the title, is martial law coming to the United States? And the answer to that question is a big fat yes. And the main reason why it's coming to the United States is because it goes according to Bible prophecy. And when I say Bible prophecy, I mean the whole Bible. The Old Testament and the New Testament prophesy of a time of trouble. You know, we go in the book of Daniel, which is in the Old Testament. Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up. This Michael is the archangel that's going to be coming with the Lord. You know, the scriptures tell us that the Lord is coming with an army. Okay, an army of angels. And Michael will be one of those angels. The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. The children of thy people is the Israelites. But only the elect is going to be delivered when Yahushua comes back. He's only going to gather his elect. Now the rest of the nation of Israel will come back in the kingdom. But right now it's all about the elect. You know, you got these other Israelite groups, they're talking about the nation. We got to raise up the nation, build a nation. They failed to get the memo. You go in the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, it tells you exactly, unless you can't read, it tells you exactly who the Lord is going to gather, his elect, from the four corners of the earth. So that's what it means by standing for the children of thy people. Now here's the part. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. Now that time of trouble, an example of that time of trouble will be when martial law is totally implemented in the United States. And truth be told, we've been under martial law ever since FDR came in office. Now that's something you have to research and see why I said that. You know, when FDR announced the New Deal, that was really an era of martial law. When you go into the dynamics of it, the New Deal, basically it was more government control over the people. Okay, and that's why the Depression was set up. That's why later, after the New Deal, America got into World War II. It was essentially to bring more control over the people. It's always been about control. Control of the minds of people. As a matter of fact, it was Elder Apostle Tal brought out the meaning of the word government. As you look at the definition of martial law, which is what we're approaching, an extreme form of martial law. Here's the definition: martial law, which martial means warlike. That's where you get the term martial arts, warlike arts. Right? In martial arts, you have karate, you have jiu-jitsu, you have all these different arts of war. Hence the term martial art, right? Well, martial law is warlike law, where war is declared against the people. And the main people war is going to be declared on is you Israelites, man. That is the Lord's way of purging you for your wickedness. And a lot of you Israelites are going to die, man. A lot of you are going to, both inside the truth and outside of the truth. And you're going to die in horrific ways, horrific manner. Okay, because it is the Lord's judgment. You know, this is going to be a common thing when martial law is totally imposed in America. Get ready to see a lot of tanks going down residential streets, a lot of government searches, house-to-house searches, door-to-door seizures. You know, we're going to read some of the steps that are going to be implemented in the United States during total martial law. We're going to read it according to this article here. This is why I'm even doing this video. You know, as it is written, the Lord said to warn his people, Ezekiel 3:17. Warn my people. Okay? Anyway, getting back to the definition, martial law, military government involving the suspension of ordinary law. Exactly. The laws that take over when the ordinary law is suspended is laws pertaining to war. Warlike laws with serious punishment. Okay? For the smallest of things. If you say that because Esau is trying to bring the New World Order, if you say that the New World Order is wrong, you could say it under the penalty of death. Another law that's going to be implemented during martial law is the law of taking that chip. It's going to be made mandatory to take that chip. And you will see that as one of the steps that shows signs of martial law, total martial law coming to the United States, is to take that chip. Anyway, getting back to Daniel 12:1, let's read it again. And at that time Michael shall stand up, and I explain who Michael is. The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. I explain who the children of thy people is. And there shall be a time, this is what we want, and there shall be a time of trouble, which we're not in that time now. We're approaching that time. You know, like Elder Apostle Tar said, you will know when the time of trouble is here. You will know. Okay, because it's going to be different from the time we're in now. You know, the America you know now is going to be totally different when total martial law is imposed in the United States. Another thing under martial law is where freedom is shortened dramatically. Okay, because you have something called curfews. After a certain hour, if you're caught on the streets without a valid good reason, you're susceptible to be shot down or arrested. You know, in the case of you Jakes out there, you Israelites, they'll probably just shoot you down, man, because you're the main enemy of the so-called white man's government. You're the main enemy of the bankers. You will be the main enemy during martial law. Okay, there was an article a few years back when you had the Miami 7. If you Google the Miami 7, I think, and the title of the article was called "The New Face of Terrorism." Let me see if I find it. And guess what the new face of terrorism looked like? That's right, you Jakes, man. Miami 7. The new face of yeah, the Liberty 7. You know, I want to see if I can find the article. I hate when you have all these pop-ups. The new face of terrorism, from the grand to mundane. See that? See the guy in the middle? In other words, the so-called Negro is the new face of terrorism. And terrorism is going to be the enemy when martial law is totally imposed. Yeah, there you go. Now, this is not the actual article, but they had, now this is back in when? This is back in 2006. And give you all the names. Supposedly all these guys were terrorists. As you can see, most of the names, they were of the tribe of Levi, so-called Haitians. But they had this picture here on the article, and they had the giant title saying "The New Face of Terrorism." You see down here the 7 men charged in the terror plot. And I think it was the plot was to blow up. See? 5 were U.S. citizens, 1 a legal immigrant from Haiti, and the last an illegal alien originally from Haiti, tribe Levi. They were accused of planning to levy a full-ground war against the United States. Come on. See, that's that demonization. So basically, you're the new face of terrorism, right? So when martial law is totally imposed, they're going to come after you. You jakes out there, man. Okay, so let's get into the article. Now, let me say a few words on this here, Gray State. Now, a movie was made, but it wasn't the original movie that was supposed to be made, where they were supposed to show a lot more than they showed in the movie that eventually was made. And that's one of the reasons why the director was killed. I believe he was killed. But according to the New York Times article, the director who directed Gray State, now if you don't know anything about Gray State, it's a movie that depicts what will happen when martial law is totally implemented in the United States. And it was pretty explicit. The original trailer, you know, the original trailer of Gray State and what the movie was supposed to show, you know, that was changed dramatically when the original director was taken out of the way, which his name was David Crowley, as you see here. According to this New York Times article, review, a Gray State behind a filmmaker's madness. They were saying that this guy was not sound of mind. You know, again, demonization. Aspiring filmmaker David Crowley depicted a scene in Gray State which despite an auspicious start was never made, in part because of Mr. Crowley's death in January 2015. Now, as you read, they were saying that it was a murder-suicide. He killed his wife and his daughter and then himself. I don't believe that shit. It is right here. Mr. Crowley made a concept trailer, which, like I said, in that trailer, it showed a lot. Okay, and the final part of the trailer showed the guillotine towards the very end. How the guillotine is going to be used during the martial law. And I'm sure it's going to be used for, you know, especially you. I'm not concerned about the other nations. I'm concerned about you Israelites. You jakes, you know, from the so-called Negro all the way down to the so-called Mexican that lives here in America. You know, if you reject that chip, I'm sure that's one of the reasons they're going to have to use the guillotine. Also, those that are violently opposed to the so-called New World Order, the guillotine will be used. And the guillotine, which is an instrument that cuts off the head, the guillotine is also in the scriptures. Okay, you go in the book, especially in the New Testament, you go in the book of Revelation, it speaks about them that were beheaded. So we know that they have the guillotine set up. You know, this wicked elite, they have the guillotine set up for resistors of the newly imposed total New World Order, which is going to be imposed under martial law in America. We know they have the guillotine set up. We know that because it's according to Bible prophecy. And it's the same vision that the Apostle John saw on the island of Patmos. Here it is right here. And I saw thrones, Revelation 20:4, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua. Now these are brothers that are going to speak the truth and defend the truth even in the face of the armies of the martial law. Okay, the armies of martial law that Esau is going to institute. You know, they're going to you're going to have brothers that are going to go to their death defending the truth. And one of the ways of them being put to death will be by that guillotine. Hence the term beheaded. Okay? And then it was back in 1996, 95, for the state of Georgia. You can look this up. You can Google it. There was legislation to bring back the guillotine as a form of capital punishment. The guillotine. The guillotine has had a history being used as capital punishment. Go back to the 1700s during the France. If you Google 1700s France and the guillotine, which I think that's where it came from, hence the name guillotine, which is a French name. The guillotine was used as a form of capital punishment, and pretty much is a quick, easy, painless death. Your head is immediately cut off your body. Okay? But the Apostle John saw that. He saw where certain brothers were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of Yahweh, which is this truth. Like I said, these brothers are going to defend the truth even to their deaths. And which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, which his image is what? The so-called New World Order. Neither received his mark upon their forehead. So this is a future prophecy. What I'm reading here is a future prophecy. Okay, and as you're going to see, it says neither had received his mark upon their foreheads. This mark is that chip. And as you're going to see in this article, one of the steps of total imposition of martial law is where this chip will be made mandatory. And we're going to get to it. So going back to the prophecy. So you're going to have certain brothers that are going to be beheaded. And like I said, I gave examples of how they would be beheaded, because the guillotine is one of the instruments. There's something called the instruments of torture. During martial law, you have instruments of torture. One of them is the guillotine. You know, it's torturous just looking at it. Imagine if you're led to... This is a scenario all of us brothers should play in our minds. Imagine if you're being led to a guillotine because you're firm in the truth. Now, if the spirit of Yahweh Baal Shem Yahushua is not with you, you're going to fall apart. Or we're going to fall apart. You know? It's an instrument of torture. Just looking at it is an instrument of torture. Mental torture. But Esau has other instruments of mental torture and physical torture too. And they're going to be used during the time of when martial law is totally imposed. Remember, in the book of Daniel, it said there would be a time of trouble. Okay? A time of trouble. So all that is going to be a part of that time of trouble. Martial law, instruments of torture. Then you're going to have pandemics. You're going to, oh man, it's going to be like the proverbial saying, is going to be a Pandora's box of evils. Okay? And the only ones that's going to be able to keep their minds through all that evil, as it is written, men's hearts failing them for fear of the things that are coming upon the earth. The only ones that's going to be able to keep their minds together, keep their minds stable, is the elect. As it is written, Isaiah 33:6, knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times. The stability for who? The elect. They'll have the knowledge and wisdom, and they'll be able to be calm in the face of all these evils that are about to come on the earth, especially right here to America. Remember, let's not forget, the word America, or the name America, means bitter. Now, it came in bitterly, it's going to go out bitterly. Before those missiles hit this place, there's going to be all kind of evils being done by the man of evil, which is Esau, the so-called white man, beginning with those bankers. There's going to be all kind of evils being done, especially to the people of the Lord, you Israelites out there. So there you go. So let's read it again. It says, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of the Heavenly Father, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Yahushua 1,000 years. So there you go, man. receive the mark in their foreheads or in their hands. That mark is not talking about no goddamn Christianity. That mark is talking about the straight up chip, which when the law is imposed, the martial law, the warlike law, when it's imposed, if you don't take the chip, you're susceptible to being beheaded by a guillotine. There you go. So that is totally plain. Okay, so let's get to it. All right. All the signs indicate it's coming soon. Here are the facts. So we're dealing with facts here that you should know about, especially you Israelites, because this concerns you, and it's pursuant to the prophecy in the scriptures. Now in the interest of time, I'm gonna jump around. Like I said, you brothers can read the article. Some of you may do videos on this article, which is pretty good. The primary agenda for martial law in America. Let's get to number one: controlling the population. One way you control the population is by killing off the population, reducing it. Okay. The first purpose of martial law is to place the entire population under strict control, so freedom will be severely limited. And an example of that is curfews, military curfew. If we can be cowed into obeying and don't rebel, they will rapidly continue with their more extreme measures, and that even includes death. Okay, all critical resources will be confiscated and or controlled, taking full control over the distribution of the food supply. Water, gasoline, and electricity will force most people to comply. Comply with what? The new measures of the so-called New World Order. That's what. Which one of them will be placed with a chip, either in your head or in your hands, right or left. And like sometimes Elder Apostle Tal likes to say, your butt cheek. Okay. And you'll have brothers that will not comply, and that's where Revelation 20, what I just read, the book of Revelation 20:4 comes in. It's going to get real. Okay, it's going to get very real out here. Okay, now here it comes. A national ID or surgically implanted biometric ID chip will likely be mandatory. Not likely, will be mandatory. Okay? By tracking the population, it will become more difficult to rebel or escape. So that's one of the reasons why the chip will be offered. So, individuals that have it in their mind to escape, maybe escape to the forest, escape to the woods, or to rebel, it will be more difficult because they will have a chip within them. All forms of money will be tightly regulated and controlled. And in those days, the paper money that we have now eventually will be done away with and replaced by that national ID or that chip. Bank accounts and retirement funds will be stolen. There you go. Remember, a time of trouble. Gold will be confiscated just like it was during, they have it here, even as it was under President Franklin Roosevelt. And that's why I say martial law really goes back to FDR, because one of the measures that he implemented under the New Deal was you had to give up your gold. You had to give up your gold for Federal Reserve notes. So that was definitely a prelude of martial law even back then. I think it was 1933, 1934. That's why it's important to know history, man. Because when you know history, you can you have a roadmap to where all of this madness we're in now, where it's leading to. Propaganda will be continually fed to the population about the reason for the national control. The government, and an example of that propaganda was the Liberty 7. So they made sure they set it up for one of the faces of terrorism is to be you so-called Negroes. I'm telling you, they had that article where they had these guys, and the top of the article said the new face of terrorism. So these devils, this so-called white man, beginning with the bankers, they got it all under control, man. And it's really at the helm of Yahweh Bar Shem Yahweh Shai, as you will see when we go into the scriptures. Propaganda will be continually fed to the population, and that's one form of control. About the reason for the national control, the government will attempt to present itself as the country's savior from whatever manufactured crisis they have authored. And a good example of that is 9/11. You know, years later it came out that the government created 9/11, but in the days of 9/11, I remember, you know, they had everybody, they had the country in a panic, and the government stepped forward and said, look, we're going to, you know, Bush made that speech. You know, either you're with them or you're with us, and they you know, presented themselves as saviors from the crisis of 9/11 when they created it. Okay, hence the title, the devil. That's how the devil gets down. You know, that's how he does his thing. The government will attempt to present itself as the country's savior from whatever manufactured crisis they have authored. Believe almost nothing that they tell you. Virtually everything they say will be a calculated lie designed to keep you hoping and subservient until resistance is no longer possible. And essentially, especially concerning you Israelites, what this so-called white man government want is for you to be brought back to being enslaved or being in slavery. That's their main goal. Ultimately, to get back the birthright that they lost to our forefather Jacob, which the birthright was really slavery. Okay, you know, Esau knows, the top elites of Esau, they know they're going back into slavery. So their so-called New World Order is an attempt for them to bring you into slavery. When I say you, us Israelites, into slavery, and they escape it. You know, there you go. Establishment of a curfew. Harsh penalties will be enacted on the spot. Terrorist events will be set off to induce fear. Again, the book of Job 18:10, it says, terror shall make him afraid on every side. Let me see, Job 18:10. The fireworks is the fireworks is getting ready to really pop off, brothers. Job 18:11. Terror shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. So here we're reading, terrorist events will be set off to induce fear. Now, again, it's written in Matthew, men's hearts failing them for fear, for the things that are coming upon the planet Earth. The government will try to make themselves look like our savior as they supposedly stop these horrific false flag events. Good example is 9/11, and there'll be stuff happening that's going to make 9/11 look like like it was a Sunday school picnic. Okay, like it was a pleasant road trip. The stuff that is getting ready to happen, the horrific false flag events. False flag because the same government that's going to try to fight against it are the same ones that created it, hence the term false flag. These horrific false flag events that they themselves have created. See, fear through drones overhead, neighborhood spies. And they showed you in the example of the drones, how the drones was killing you Israelites in the movie The Purge. The movie that has been made called The Purge. they showed how the drones were used to kill Jake, kill you Israelites. So drones overhead, neighborhood spies, electronic surveillance, and the presence of military police everywhere will make the world unnerving for citizens who haven't seen all of this coming. There you go. Time of Jacob's trouble. That's in Jeremiah 30:7. Disarming the population. Relocation of the population. That's where your detention centers come in. Your concentration camps come in. That's in the book of Revelation as well. Let's get to that. Revelation 2:9. You remember the article said what? It said relocation of the population, right? There you go. Revelation 2:10 actually. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, tested, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. And that's really directed to the elect, the Lord's elect. Because the majority of our people, really this truth ain't for them. 2/3 this truth ain't for them. They're going to come back in the kingdom and finally get the truth. But for now, the truth really ain't for them. It's for the elect. So the majority of them, they're going to be, cast into prison. And these prisons are your detention centers, your concentration camps. And that's going to help to relocate the population. Okay. There you go. Citizens relocated to larger cities where they can be controlled. And the cities are going to be the real centers of control. The cities are going to, now in the Apocrypha it speaks about a man shall desire to go into the city and shall not be able. Again, it is written, their cities shall be troubled, because the cities are going to be cordoned off. You're going to have checkpoints at the city, military checkpoints at the entrance of the city, in and out of the city. So again, citizens relocated to larger cities where they can be controlled and put to work. This is all part of Agenda 21. You can Google Agenda 21. So this is all on record. Those in the country and the suburbs will be removed to the city in stages, maybe first going through detention camps to weed out the problem people. There you go. And in those detention camps, you have chipping stations. So this is all part, and I'm probably going to do more videos on this, This is all part of this time of trouble, martial law and all of that. And it definitely is coming. When I say is coming, meaning the full implementation of martial law. That's what's coming. Now let's get to the scriptures. The book of Jeremiah, the 16th chapter, the first verse. The word of the Lord came also unto me, saying, Thou shalt not take thee a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place. Why? Because this is the place of hell. Now, those of you that have wives, sons and daughters, then the best you can do is pray that Yahweh Shem Yahushai protect your wives, your sons, your daughters. But if they don't make it, hey, they don't make it. They'll come back in the kingdom. The main person you should be concerned about is you making it, is you being a part of the elect. There's no guarantee that your wife or your sons and your daughters will make it right along with you. Anyway, reading on, it says, For thus saith the Lord concerning the sons and concerning the daughters that are born in this place, and concerning their mothers that bear them, and concerning their fathers that begat them in this land, they shall die of grievous deaths. Now that was back, Jeremiah prophesied of the Babylonian Empire, the onslaught of the Babylonian Empire. Well, guess what? It's going to happen again. It happened back during the time of the Babylonian Empire. Well, it's going to happen again. The so-called white man is the modern day Babylonians. The word Babylon means confusion. So the time is coming when grievous deaths will be a norm. Okay, they shall die of grievous deaths. They shall not be lamented, neither shall they be buried. Yeah, bodies are just going to be piled all over the place, man. But they shall be as dung upon the face of the earth, and they shall be consumed by the sword and by famine, and their carcasses shall be meat for the fowls of heaven and for the beasts of the earth. That's horrific, man. And that is exactly what's coming. Okay? When martial law is totally implemented on right here in America, a lot of death, a lot of grievous deaths, horrific deaths, being shot down in the street. Then you're gonna have your race wars, your race riots. You know, the military government's gonna make their first move on you Jakes, on you Israelites, because after all, you're the new face of terrorism. Okay. Here's the next one, Ezekiel, the 21st chapter. I'm going to bounce around in this one. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward Jerusalem, which represents you Israelites, from the so-called Negro all the way down to so-called Mexican, and drop thy word toward the holy places, and prophesy against the land of Israel. Because the majority of you Israelites refuse to learn righteousness. You enjoy being wicked, so you will be punished. And this is the extreme form of punishment, using the so-called white man to come against you in something called martial law. That's why King David in the book of Psalm 17, he said, deliver me from thy wicked, which is thy sword, or deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword. The wicked is the so-called white man, Esau, Edom. And they're the main ones bringing this, or will bring this martial law, because it starts from it starts from the top bankers on down. And you Israelites are the main enemy. Let me jump down to, well, let me read the 3rd verse. And say to the land of Israel, thus saith the Lord, behold, I am against thee, and will draw forth my sword. See? Let me read that again. And say to the land of Israel, all you Israelites out there, thus saith the Lord. This is what we're supposed to say to you, what the Lord hath said to you. Behold, I am against thee. I mean, he's against you for your wickedness. You know, you're into all kind of different philosophies. You're eating all kind of madness. You're doing all kind of wickedness. So the Lord said he's against you. The Lord's name is Yahweh, and his only begotten son is Yahweh Shai, and will draw forth my sword out of his sheath, and will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked. And draw forth my sword out of his sheath. What's an example of that? The so-called white man and his martial law, his so-called New World Order. That's an example of the Lord drawing his sword from his sheath, because it was King David that said, deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword. Now, if you know about the scriptures, the wicked, pursuant to Malachi, the 1st chapter, is Esau, Edom, and that is the so-called white man today. And they're the main ones who want to bring this martial law. They want to bring the so-called New World Order. So there you go. I mean, I can't make it any plainer. Let's jump down to the 8th verse. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord, say, a sword is sharpened. That again, that's that so-called white man, his so-called New World Order, bringing that time of trouble. A sword is sharpened, and is also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. There's your example right here. The sword is sharpened. Martial law is coming. Total implementation of martial law. The sword is being sharpened. All these agendas here for the time of martial law, that's all part of the sword being sharpened. Controlling the population. Mandatory chips. Ruthless elimination of resistors. Okay? Establishment of a curfew. Harsh penalties will be enacted on the spot. Disarming the population. All of this is part of that sword that's being sharpened. And the Lord is going to allow that to happen for a period of time until he sends back his son, Yahweh Shai, to totally destroy the so-called white man and his so-called New World Order. And then Yahweh Shai will set up his kingdom on the planet Earth. See, that's, in a nutshell, that's what's about to happen. Okay? That's the time we're living in. And we as men of the Lord, his prophets, if you will, we're supposed to prophesy that unto you, whether you will hear or whether you will forbear, whether you listen or not. So you can't say that you have not been told. You can't say that we didn't warn you, pursuant to Ezekiel 3:17. Okay, it is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? Meaning, yeah, should we be enjoying ourselves, all these parties? You know, Jake is in a continual partying spirit. No, we're not in the time of partying. We'll party in the kingdom. Right now, we're not in the time of partying. And I tell you, me personally, I despise parties. I despise clubs. You know, we're not in the time of partying. Like it says here, should we then make mirth? The answer is no. It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree. So because you're in this perpetual partying spirit, a lot of you Israelites are going to die, and you're going to die horrifically. And he hath given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. This he is the heavenly Father Yahweh. He hath given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, and it is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer, the killer. There you go, the slayer. And he's going to kill a lot. Like this Gray State trailer, man, they showed a lot. That's why the guy who created Gray State, the movie, David Crowley, that's why he was put to death. He didn't kill himself, nor did he kill his wife or his daughter. No, they silenced him, because evidently he brought out too much. You see the trailer, right? You see what's back here? The people being fenced off, you know, being relocated. There you got a FEMA center right here. And FEMA is a big part. FEMA was created for the hour of total martial law. That's why it was created. It wasn't created to help you Jakes out, help you Israelites out. You know, like you had that simple-minded nigga say, where FEMA at? Where FEMA at? FEMA wasn't created to help you. FEMA was created to destroy you. FEMA is an acronym for Federal Emergency Management Association. And yeah, you're the main, you're the face of terrorism against FEMA, man. That's why FEMA is coming after you. As it is written, it's high time for you Israelites to wake up out of sleep, man. The 12th verse, cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people. It shall be upon the, you see, cry and howl. And that's what I'm doing right now. That's what beginning fell the apostle tower on down. That's what we've been doing. We certainly cry and howl about that chip. Okay? How that chip is going to be made mandatory under the penalty of death. Cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people, you Israelites. That's why I said earlier, I'm not concerned about the other nations. I'm concerned about you. Okay? But only 1/3 of you is going to make it. Really, I'm concerned about the elect of the nation of Israel. Warning you, and some of you that listen and take heed, that means you're part of the elect. Cry and howl, for it shall be upon my people. It shall be upon the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon the thigh. There you go. What does it say here? Terrors by reason of the sword. There you go. Here's a perfect example, brothers. Terrors by reason of the sword. The sword is coming, man. And what's the sword? The modern day gun. That's the sword of the so-called white man. And finally, Isaiah 65:12. Well, let me start at 11. But ye are they that forsake the Lord, that forget my holy mountain. That's the rest of the nation, the 2/3, that prepare a table for that troop. Who's the troop? There you go, the so-called white man, the troops. You know, in the book of Genesis, it speaks about how a troop shall overcome Gad. What was that? That was the U.S. Army, the cavalry, if you will, that came against the so-called North American Indian. As the prophecy said, a troop shall overcome him. A troop of shall overcome Gad, which the word Gad, or the name Gad, means troop. Were they not taken over by the so-called white man and lost their land? Absolutely. So once again, that troop is coming, man. That troop. And 2/3 of you Israelites, you're the ones that bow down to that troop. You're the ones that's going to take that chip. Because like it says here, metaphorically speaking, you have prepared a table for that troop. I mean, you gave in to the so-called white man and his so-called New World Order. So because you prepared a table for that troop, you're going to be what? Slaughtered. And that furnished the drink offering unto that number. Therefore will I number you to the sword, and ye shall all bow down to the slaughter. Because when I called, ye did not answer. And the Lord is calling you through us. Like I read earlier, crying, how, thou son of man, for it shall be upon my people. The Lord have raised us up to teach you. You know, we're out there in the streets, which essentially is the Lord calling you through us. But the majority of you ain't listening. You know, therefore will I number you to the sword, and ye shall all bow down to the slaughter. Because when I called, ye did not answer. When I spake, ye did not hear, but did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not. So that's why all this hell will come upon you, all this destruction. And the only ones of you that's going to listen, you Israelites, is the elect. So we're only concerned about the elect. The majority of you will not listen, and you will be destroyed. If martial law don't get you, eventually the chariots and those nuclear missiles will get you. So it's a season of death coming. A lot of death, man. The end times. All right, so I believe that's all I got. For now, like I said, I'll be doing more videos on this article here until we totally come into that time of total implementation of martial law. Well, till then, every now and again, I'm going to be revisiting this information and linking it up with the scriptures. So for now, I say shalom, and I'll see you in the next edition.